Hey everyone, I'm in Vegas for AWS reInvent, and you're not. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hello everyone, it's Alan Schimmel of Techstrong coming at you live from the Wynn Hotel, our Techstrong studio headquarters for this week as we celebrate AWS reInvent. We'll be bringing you lots of AWS reInvent related news and stories and interviews all week. We have a full lineup. You can check it out on Techstrong TV. But we're also going to be doing the gang from Vegas all week. Though not all of our gang members are in Vegas, but some are. Let me introduce you to today's gang lineup. First of all, he doesn't leave Silicon Valley for anything, it seems. He's our resident Silicon Valley expert, editor, John Swartz. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Hey, actually, I did go to a field day at Stephen. I met Tom, your compatriot, a couple of weeks ago.
Well, may I ask where that field day was?
It was in San Jose. It was in downtown San Jose.
Oh, I rest my case. No further questions.
Well, it's Silicon Valley, though. So you're right. I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
All right. But anyway, John, it's always a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Joining us, holding down the fort in our Boca Raton Nerve Center studio headquarters, it's our sustainability analyst and editor, Bonnie Schneider. Hi, Bonnie. How are you?
Hi, Alan. Great to be here.
Great to have you on. And not coming to Tech Field Day, staying back for some lake effect snow. I don't know if you guys got it there, Stephen, but Buffalo looked bad yesterday. He's the founder's CEO
Buffalo
of Tech
looked
Field Day.
really good yesterday versus the shit. Come on. That was beautiful.
Okay. Well, I guess if you liked if you like the Bills or you don't like who they were playing, right? The Baltimore, or not, they weren't playing.
The 49ers,
The
unfortunately.
49ers, yes, the San
they got
Francisco
destroyed.
49ers.
Yeah.
The 49ers are in a tailspin. But let's go back to Lake Effect Cleveland. Tech Field Day CEO Futurum Group, Stephen Foskett. Hey, Stephen, welcome.
It's good to be here. And thankfully, my town is just below the snow belt. So we got nothing at all. We just got like pretty little flakes coming down. But just a few miles north of here, it is a blizzard.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're okay and you missed out on that. And, I could tell from our group that we're easily distracted here going down alternate storylines. I'll try to keep us on track. But, besides me being in Vegas, our other gang member coming at us from Vegas, I didn't realize she's actually in the same hotel. Futurum analyst, Camberley Bates. There she is. Hey, Camberley, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning to you. All right. So, guys, you know what? They slipped us a curveball here. We came out here thinking we're going to cover AWS, and kind of all hell's breaking loose. Intel CEO. God, John, what's the story?
Well, so Pat Gelsinger, who has been at Intel on and off for 40 years, he actually started as a teenager there in 1979. He was their first CTO, and he became the CEO about 4 years ago. He retired on Sunday. The company made the announcement on Monday, and this kind of ended this tumultuous, nearly 4-year period for the company in which it was really struggling against NVIDIA, Qualcomm, AMD. It just recently got a grant under the CHIPS Act, which could be imperiled by the incoming Trump administration. Gelsinger tried a lot of different things, but in a sense, the stock is down significantly. The market value is down. They're getting clobbered. It's just an older company that has struggled. I know Stephen and Camberley can talk more about this, but he's gone. And there had been speculation that he was going to leave. There was even a rumor a couple of months ago that Qualcomm was looking into acquiring part or all of the company. It's a sad situation. He's a good guy. He tried this costly turnaround and trying to make the company a contract manufacturer for other chip firms, and it just didn't work out. It hasn't panned out.
Camberley, you want to try it or you want me to?
Well, I've been interacting with Pat since he had joined EMC after he left Intel, and my admiration and praise for him is I just posted up on LinkedIn. I said, of all the CEOs I've interacted with, he is probably the smartest, the most strategic to me, as well as real and sincere as any CEO is out there. And you get what you get. There is no, the analysts. When we go into analyst meetings, we have Q&A sessions with them. They do what they do, et cetera. I mean, the thing that really kind of took me and said he understands, he has a vision, he sees where things are going, is when he took on the helm for VMware. And VMware was at its height with vSphere. And we were just starting to move into this thing that nobody knew what it was, but it was containers. And in those meetings, in the meetings strategically, basically, he was saying, you reinvent yourself as a container company or you're going down. That's more or less what he said to the entire staff. And you have to go push through this and make this happen. And he did. He lit the fire on those people to doing it in a way that was elegant, sincere, strategic in the view. They did not execute out that. And also Intel a little bit later, I think it was about 2 years, because we heard that at two different analyst sessions that he was talking about. The first time was that we're doing this, and we all went, what the heck are you talking about? The next time is what they had done those last 12 months, and we're just starting to eke out some things. And now we see where VMware is. They didn't reinvent, but he was making them reinvent. I think this is, personally, as strategic as I saw him, as strategic as he has the vision, I think this is a mistake by Intel. I can be very, very wrong because I really don't know the business of the foundry business, but he's a visionary and he knows where this needs to go. And it's a tragedy. It also will be a tragedy for the United States because what I'm afraid they're going to do is they're going to take this infamous company and split it up into a bunch of parts and pieces. And that's going to be really sad.
Yeah, I that's why I wanted to hear from you, because I know that you know Pat probably better than I do. Man, I completely agree with you. Pat Gelsinger was the total package. When he came into Intel, my reaction was, well, it's recorded on the Gestalt IT Rundown if anybody wants to look it up from a few years back. The news came in while we were on air, and we stopped everything to talk about it because Pat, as Camberley said, Pat is probably the best CEO I ever knew personally and professionally. Someone who is everything that Intel needed. He is technical. He has incredible business skills. He has incredible charisma, leadership abilities. And not only that, but I've been saying this ever since he took charge at Intel, he had the right strategy. Absolutely 100% the right strategy. But right from the beginning, what I've been wondering about and worrying about and talking about is, will they give him the reins to do it? Because what Intel needed was some really tough management, and that's what Gelsinger was doing. And now he's gone. The fact that this came out, I don't want to make any assumptions here or anything, but so he retires on a Sunday after a holiday weekend. Nobody says anything. There's no warning, and the news is released first thing Monday morning while everybody's still asleep on the West Coast. I don't even know what to say about it, except that I really doubt that he retired voluntarily, and I just can't imagine he would either, because his work's not done. He's still trying to rebuild Intel. He did so many hard things to try to get that ship moving in the right direction. The foundry business, the refocusing, the shedding of products and staff. That work isn't done. And as Camberley said, what I think is going to come next, I absolutely agree with you. What is going to come next, especially given that MJ is in charge of basically the products, literally the products, that Foundry is separate, and that the CFO is stepping in as co-CEO. This absolutely smells like we're going to split this company up. There's going to be a Foundry company. There's going to be a products company. There's going to be a, I don't know, whatever else we can do with this. The attempt to restart Intel is done.
So the co-CEOs are, as you mentioned, Stephen, David Zinsner, who's the CFO, and then Michelle Johnston Holtas, who's the CEO of Intel Products.
Yes.
And they are looking for a full-time CEO, but that's
they're
who knows if that's
temporary
going to
interim.
happen.
They're interim. There's going to be a full.
They're interim, right?
Let
So they're going to look for a
me-
full-time
MJ
person eventually.
MJ is, my understanding was that she is full CEO of the products group. She's not
That's
interim.
correct.
At least that's my reading
Right,
of
she's
it.
CEO of products.
She's both
of
now.
Intel itself.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's
So
going to
let
do both.
let me take a different tact on this a little bit. So first of all, Camberley, Stephen, I agree with you. Pat Gelsinger is a visionary in, quite frankly, a industry where we're short on visionaries and very long on snake oil, right? And so his loss, I think, will be felt, not just at Intel, but in the industry in general. If he's truly retiring, right? Or is that, and if he is truly retiring, let me throw a hypothesis out there. He has been under assault for the last 9 months easily, as this stock, a year, as this stock has taken a hit, right? They missed the boat on the GPU thing. Yeah, that gave NVIDIA an opening. AMD has been biting at their ankles forever and ever and has made a lot of progress. The chip market has changed. It's not the Wintel monopoly that the Intel we knew. And he knew, as you said, he knew what needed to be done, and it was tough medicine. And sometimes administering tough medicine is tough, right? And you get people who don't want to see that through. Man takes a Thanksgiving holiday, takes stock of his family and friends and where he is in his life. And we're all of an age. Camberley, you know this. I know this, Stephen. What do you do? Why do I keep banging my head on this wall? Is that wall going to get soft before my head does?
Well, Pat's got a hard head.
No, I
It's a
get
good
it.
head,
I get
but
it.
I think he would bang his head on that wall until he sets Intel right and until he lives up to the promise of the company as established by his very illustrious predecessors.
But what if you get to the point where they're just not going to let you do it? You realize that they're just not going to let you do what you need that needs to get done. They're not going to let VMware become a container company. They're going to keep it contained, no pun intended, in Tanzu. And Tanzu's going to be this kind of left field thing, not the main business. The same thing with Intel. Now, what does this mean for Intel? Something obviously is going to happen. I think the best we could hope for is that someone would buy it whole, though I don't know if you're a Gordon Gekko kind of dude, if that's the right thing, because the parts are probably worth more at this point than the whole, right? But this isn't, guys, where you are personally saying, what a loss of Pat Gelsinger. I'm saying what a loss for an American icon.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I did say that it's more than just Pat, it's Intel as well, about potentially where this is going and what this means.
Yeah.
That it is an icon. We saw this happen with GE. I was working with GE very closely when I was with IBM many years ago when Welch was there, and it was brutal. It was brutal with GE, and I was also actually worked for GE when Welch was there, and it was brutal to do that. The discipline, the requirements, the management of it was like, oh my God, But when he left and the next regime came in, they skipped the beat. They missed, and we see what happened to GE. They scattered it from all over the place. It's not what it used to be. Welch and Immelt, that relationship completely fell apart between the two of them. Jeff Immelt, the following up CEO. So it's all of that saying we lost GE, and I think that's why we talk about when companies last for 100 years, like, oh my gosh, they go through these things. And and Intel was one of the first ones that basically said, you walk out the door, you turn around and come back in and say, how do I have to reinvent my company in order to survive? And frankly, that's another thing that's really interesting about why we sold the Evaluator Group to Futurum. That's what Daniel is doing, is he's looking at the analyst industry to say, how does this industry have to change if everybody is so pissed off at, the leading analysts in the industry. And yet they still go and say, okay, here's my money. Here is how we're going to transact with you. But at the same time, they're looking for other resources to do things. And that's the nature of industries. And sometimes they have to go down.
It's these companies, these venerable companies like Intel and Cisco and IBM, they're all going through these patches, right? They've been around decades. And this guy, and Pat was, again, just an honorable man, a great person, a great strategist who was the prodigal son. They brought him back in despite all odds. Maybe it was too late. I mean, they're in the process of laying off 15,000 people. I don't know if anyone could have turned it around. I mean, just given what he encountered or what he had to work against.
Yeah.
I mean, the headwinds in the industry were certainly there, and you had a lot of inertia in the machine. But nevertheless, Camberley, at the end of the day, I agree with you. I think it is a loss. It's a loss for Intel. It's a loss for our industry, for the tech industry in a whole. I think it'll be interesting to see how long he stays retired. Is he really has he just said, I'm done? Or
I think you're right, Alan. I don't think it's over for him yet. He's still a fairly young man.
No, his next adventure, right? And what'll get his juices flowing. In the meantime, we'll keep our eye. Futurum is a company that follows the chip market really closely, right? Daniel himself, and of course the 6-5 Media, Daniel and Patrick Moore, and a bunch of the other folks. So we'll be covering it. We'll be covering it here on Techstrong Gang. I think I join all of you in wishing Pat Gelsinger nothing but good, smooth sailing, winds at his back, and peace after a rocky, turbulent time over here at Intel. So with that, let's take a break. We've got more crazy news. Well, it's not crazy necessarily, but those wild and crazy people at the FTC, what are they up to with Microsoft? We'll be back. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
All right. And now with what would have been our lead story today had not the Intel Pat Gelsinger news came up. Right before the weekend, it was announced that the FTC actually sent Microsoft a letter. Those are not the kind of letters you want to get. It's kind of like when I see something from the IRS. Formally letting them know that they were being investigated for anti-monopolistic, anti-trade violations. And boy, I bet they thought that was in the rearview mirror. John, you wrote a story on this. What's going on?
So they're in the letter to Microsoft. The FTC wants to scrutinize Microsoft's cloud and software licensing business, AI offerings, particularly its relationship with OpenAI and cybersecurity services. What's interesting is that this is happening near the end of the Biden administration, and the FTC is being run for now by Lena Khan, who is in the, I would say, the target of
the
being
crosshairs.
pushed out of crosshairs. Thank you for that word. I was trying to think of that. Perfect word. Crosshairs of the Trump administration. Although, ironically, J.D. Vance is a fan of hers. But Musk has been leading the calls for her to be fired. She probably is going to be replaced. She was very anti-tech, specifically Amazon. So this investigation is probably not going to amount to anything. It was just interesting to me. It almost was like a ceremonial type of announcement rather than any type of punitive action. The same thing is going on parallel with Google. So Google lost a case to the DOJ. Now the DOJ wants to splinter off Google, which will probably not happen as well. That's probably going to go by the wayside. So again, it's an investigation. It's interesting to me. I'm not really sure why they did this. I'll throw it out to you all, but I don't think it's going to really amount to much of anything.
I have some thoughts, but panel, gang members, I'll let you guys go first.
Well, I will just jump in on this one and say that, I think that a lot of the commentators are assuming things about the Trump administration that we don't know for sure. And chief among those is there seems to be a broad assumption, from the coverage that we've seen of this news, but as well as other news, that the Trump administration is going to go easy on tech. I don't think that matches what we've heard from the people. As you mentioned, J.D. Vance has said some very interesting things. We know that Elon Musk is in there whispering in Trump's ear, and we know that Trump himself has actually said some very interesting things about regulating tech. And we also know that companies like Apple and Microsoft and Google are not Trump's favorite companies generally. And the same thing can be said of Khan herself. Now, her term is technically a 7-year term. Yes, just like the FBI director, she could be pushed out early with the Senate, backing their president. Certainly that could happen. But, we don't know. We don't know that for sure. And a lot of the things that she's alleging are things that I suspect the Trump administration may actually be on board with somewhat. So I think it's really not right to say, oh, this is Lena Khan's, final shot after, right before she gets fired. We don't know that.
Well, there's a certain unpredictability that Trump is trying to reach. I mean, and in weird ways, it's kind of an effective strategy because you're right, Stephen. If you go back to all these initial actions against big tech, it was 2019 when Trump was president. And the Department of Justice and FTC went after the 4 companies, or said they were going to go after the 4 companies, which they eventually did. I think, in a sense, what they might be trying to do is what they announced the nominee for the SEC, who has got some very strong opinions about censorship in big tech. In a sense, what they're kind of playing the carrot and the stick. I think what Trump is doing is he's intimidating these companies, or his people are, but he's also
John,
kind of playing good and bad cop at the same time.
John, excuse me, was that the SEC or the FCC?
Federal FCC. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Alphabet soup. Brendan Carr, FCC,
Yes.
Federal Communications Commission. Sorry.
Yes.
So in a sense, you're getting mixed messages, right? They're going to reward big tech. They're going to go after them. And I think, in a sense, the strategy is working because he's getting leaders of big tech, like Zuckerberg, for instance, to go visit him and kiss the ring and see how they can accommodate. I mean, there is antagonistic feelings towards big tech, but I think he also wants to throw them kind of in order behind him.
John, let's not give the crazy man great due for
I will
being
actually
crazy.
in this point.
No, because how
will.
he runs, how Donald, he did it in his first administration. It's how he runs his business. Did you ever see the Star Trek episode where they land on this planet that's still stuck in like Roman times, but it's already like the 1900s, but it's still ruled by Rome, and the emperor plays factions off against each other to see who wins, and some of the factions murder each other, some don't, some whatever, but a winner emerges. That's how he governs. It's who talks to him last. He plays these. So you're going to see the Elon Musk pro-tech faction, Peter Thiel, versus the anti-tech faction, and they're going to play off against each other. And then he fancies himself El Duce, and he'll come in and make a decision on these things.
So I think,
right?
okay, so you're
I'm sorry.
talking about Trump, but I think we should talking about this Microsoft thing, which is driven by the Biden administration's staffing.
Absolutely. But
Okay.
we can't assume that the new administration is just going to throw it out. There's going to be different factions who support it. And let me just say something else. This is not akin to Google. Google, you had an actual judge, a court, adjudicate a judgment that said Google was a monopolistic, that Google was a monopoly, and then asked the Justice Department for remedies to this monopolistic practice. Right? That's kind of from a legal point of view, that's an end game. That's an end game. This is just a letter, the
Yeah.
opening salvo.
But what about
But this is what's really this is what I'm scratching my head about, is because the last time we went through the monopoly antitrust analysis, we're looking at Microsoft and their operating system dominating the world. And I'm just not seeing that same kind of domination with what they have in the market. So I'm like going, why are they wasting the paper or the digital digits on this one and delivering a request?
I don't know. That
doesn't make
Kimberly,
sense.
you're right.
That-
to
yeah,
me,
that's what-
why
to me, the
this
timing
sounds
doesn't
more
make
like
any
a
sense.
parting salvo,
well,
right,
part,
from this woman.
part of the I just want to say the part of the argument where the competitors like Slack and Zoom saying if you sign up for some of Microsoft's services, we'll give you Microsoft Teams free. So that's where the competitors come in and say, well, that's not fair for meeting software, for an example.
But to be fair to Microsoft, they've disbundled it. Right. There was one time at one point. So now we're talking about bundling Office product. Team was bundled with Office. I think they unbundled Team. And I don't know because I'm not a Windows or Team user, but I believe they've unbundled Team from Office, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they made
have
some
that
concessions.
really
Yeah.
strongly. I mean, one of the things we've seen is that they have influenced our friends that are big PC distributor or manufacturers, and saw those manufacturers now lean into always using Teams. And that's been an interesting shift, and that's happened in the last 6 months. That they used to have other items, but now they are only using Team.
When you say they're internally using, or they only ship PCs with Teams on them?
If I'm correct, it's Dell uses Team only for when we do our briefings now.
I mean, internally.
Internally, yes, and there's times that it's been quoted back to me when I've sent over like a Zoom for a meeting with them that they have to reinstall it because they can't
Yes.
keep it on their computer. So
I've seen that too.
there's some accuracy with that, and I've seen that in a couple different places besides Dell.
So on this story, though, yes, you're right. I definitely have seen that too, Camberley. And of course, we see the same thing with Cisco and WebEx. And with Google and Google Meet. But on this thing, back to the point that you made earlier, I think that what's going on here is I think Lina Khan does know that she's probably on the way out. And I think what she's doing here is basically soliciting the evidence that her successor will need to decide whether they want to bring a case here. I think this is actually a pretty smart move by her to continue her work even after she's gone. Because if, they have to respond. Yes, she's still in there for 2 more months. She's going to make them respond. If there's evidence of monopolistic practices, then she's going to tie that up with a bow and put it on the desk of her successor and say, have at it. And what will they do with that? Well, I think that Trump is not too pro-Microsoft. I think that the successor will probably not be too pro-Microsoft. And I think this story has legs.
Well, let's examine the different parts of the alleged practices. One is that by making Microsoft Office part of Azure, right, it's giving Azure an unfair advantage. Yeah, we're here at AWS reInvent with 65,000 other people. It's very, it's very, it's very hard to say Azure's a monopoly here, right? Has Office, probably, you know what they say. If you take Office users off of the Microsoft cloud and you take Google Workplace users off of Google, Oracle Cloud is pretty damn close in size to them, right? Um, so I don't really see that rising to the level of monopolistic. The second part is the bundling of Teams against Slack, Zoom, other kind of workplace teams. Without using the word teams, they got a good name for that. But anyway, that seems an easy, okay, let's unbundle that and not force it down people's throats, similar to an Internet Explorer. It's not a reason to break up Chrome over make Google sell Chrome. I don't think it's a reason to shut down Microsoft either. The third thing, though, is the real gotcha, and that's the OpenAI relationship. People are scared to death in Washington of AI, right? A lot of them, Elon Musk included, had signed off on the let's go slow with AI until he was doing his own AI thing, right? And the fact that Microsoft has this relationship with OpenAI, the leading AI player, right? There are some companies like Amazon that say, okay, we're going to invest in ours and we're going to, make that competitive. Others say, break it up. And I think of the three stools on this leg, that's probably the biggest one that kind of scares people.
And the FTC they were looking at several months ago, they said they were looking into OpenAI and Microsoft and that relationship. So that there is something there. Yes.
So then I scratched my head about why do they list cybersecurity on there?
Yeah, that's a
Especially-
good
I'm like
point.
going, huh?
Well, Microsoft is known to be so strong on cybersecurity.
Especially their latest, edicts that they sent
Exactly.
out there.
By
they're
the way,
gonna
do we have any idea what the outage? We still don't know what the outage was about either.
Outlet?
I mean,
No, we haven't
days
heard.
later.
It's the news cycle, John. That's old news.
Okay. Let's investigate it though. All right.
But I do think the AI thing is what it is. Because that's where the action is, right? And I think that's and the funny part about it is I see OpenAI trying to kind of decouple their Microsoft relationship, right? And so that'll be interesting to bear it out. But you know what? We'll wait till after January 20th. Let's see, does Lena Khan keep her job? Who does come in there? Who wins out in the palace intrigue over, which faction wins out here? Pro-tech, anti-tech, pro-my tech, not your tech. Who the heck knows? It's going to be an interesting time for sure. Let's take a break on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back. Bonnie's got an interesting piece she's done on COP29. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
I'm Bonnie Schneider, sustainability contributor to the Techstrong Group. I'm excited to introduce you to a groundbreaking new initiative from Techstrong Research, the Sustainability Pulse Meter. The Pulse Meter offers valuable insights into how environmental responsibility factors into tech purchasing decisions for key players in the industry. Position your company as a leader in the industry and differentiate from your competitors with the Sustainability Pulse Meter, offered exclusively from Techstrong Research. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Techstrong Gang. Well, recently, another part of the world in Baku, an important conference was taking place, COP29. It's a leading UN global climate conference. And one of the big topics this year was tech, especially with the energy use and energy demand anticipated for AI. I take a closer look at some of the new agreements that came out of COP29 and the tech industry's response.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bonnie Schneider with your Ecotech Analyst Insights. The United Nations Annual Climate Summit, COP29, recently wrapped up in Baku, Azerbaijan. For the first time ever, the conference dedicated an entire day to digital technology, launching the Green Digital Action Declaration. Over 1,000 governments, companies, and organizations pledged to harness digital solutions while addressing their growing carbon footprint. Data center power demand is projected to consume nearly 3% of global electricity use by 2050. At one COP29 panel hosted by Deloitte, NVIDIA highlighted efforts to make data centers more energy efficient, including using liquid-cooled GPUs. Direct-to-chip liquid cooling helps to reduce both power and water use. They noted that accelerated computing platforms offer greater efficiency, providing another avenue to reduce energy consumption. Incremental gains like the adoption of liquid cooling are promising steps forward. With initiatives like the Green Digital Action Declaration launched at COP29, the tech industry has a unique opportunity to prioritize sustainability early in design, thus paving the way for substantial and long-lasting carbon reductions.
So this agreement was also about money, and some big numbers were named at the conclusion, meaning $300 billion yearly by 2035 to invest in green technology and clean energy. So the agreement is showing that we're getting the enthusiasm from global leaders from around the world, of course, but also the financial backing. So this is going to open up, I think, new opportunities for investment in green technology going forward. It was a pretty interesting announcement, and just in my world of sustainability, a lot of folks were talking about it. I'd love to hear the panel's thoughts.
So, I found Baku, which is Azerbaijan, right? An interesting place to hold this. But I don't want to be cynical, and I'm trying not to be cynical. I'm just starting to get the feeling that some of the green global climate change, the do-gooder, tree-hugging kind of stuff, we just don't, the countries that we need to be firmly behind this are not. And it's okay, they all give lip service to it, they sign these agreements, but when push comes to shove and gasoline gets too expensive, or the winter temperatures get real low and we need heat, or jobs and administrations are in danger of being lost because of poor economic, the will isn't there to see these things through. And when there's no will, there's no money. And when there's no money, it just doesn't happen. And it pains me to say this, but I think that's the real politic of it.
But you have to keep in mind, too, as I've said previously, and I just keep saying, the real politic is really where the business interest is going to go. And, I basically, the horse is out of the barn on solar. We just keep installing more. We have installed more in the last quarter than we've installed fossil fuels yet again. In fact, solar is already cheaper than fossil fuels. Doesn't matter what these potentially conflicted people with oil and gas interests want to do. If oil and gas is too expensive and solar is cheaper, the industry is going to move that way. And that's what's going to happen, whether they agree to it or not, and whether the activists protest or not, and whether they make secret oil and gas deals or not. I mean, you're right that, the president of COP29 was secretly recorded making oil and gas deals during this event in Azerbaijan. Yeah, that happened. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what these people do, because ultimately, at the end of the day, electricity and solar and batteries just keep getting cheaper. And that's the direction the industry is going to go.
Well, especially in the tech industry, because the big focus, of course, is we know AI is already using a lot of energy. There's been many estimates of how much it will use by 2030, by 2050. But I think there's an unknown factor to know exactly how to quantify that and how to measure it. And that's why one of the reasons you're seeing this emphasis in these bold agreements and investments as well.
You know, I just had a solar company over my house to quote me on converting to solar at my home. And between installing some panels and battery and some better insulation around my air conditioning, because in South Florida, right, that's our biggest, by far the biggest use of energy is your air conditioner. I will be 100%, actually 102% positive, right? So I'll be, I think I pay $25 a month from the FPL utility just because to be on the grid, it's $25 a month. But that'll be it. Um, and I'll give you real numbers. It was $30,000 to convert my house and put the battery in. Not terrible, right? So the ROI on it was 7 years. Again, not terrible. But it was very much predicated on a large tax rebate. And if you took that tax rebate out, the ROI on it, I think, doubled, which would probably be a bridge too far for me. And, and I don't know if it was just a sales tactic of the salesman and I didn't react well to it, but he basically said if I didn't act by the end of the year, no guarantee that next year that tax rebate would be available to me, depending on administrations and stuff. Being who I am, when he told me that, I said, I'll wait till next year. I don't like to have a gun in my head to make decisions. But that's the reality. And granted, this is not industrial, it's not tech, it's just one homeowner. But that's what people are being, John Q. Public is hearing and what we're dealing with. So I don't know.
The tax rebate situation is I don't suspect that the Trump administration is going to subsidize solar panels. But in an industry where prices have been dropping at an annual rate of 44%, who cares? You'll actually make up more in the cost of batteries and solar in terms of manufacturing learning curve and price efficiency than that tax rebate would be worth. So goodbye.
But as the consumer of it, though, Stephen, to me, it's the ROI.
Yeah.
Right.
And the ROI will look better when everything is another 10% cheaper, another 10% cheaper, another 10% cheaper.
Wait?
Eventually, the ROI is going to hit you.
So how long should I wait?
Well, that's actually the problem. There's actually, I think a lot of people are looking at it and thinking, wait a second, if I invest this year, and people actually saw that previously. So a lot of people went out, we did a solar study of our house actually 4 years ago, and it was almost $100,000 to install solar panels on our house, which of course we said, no. The fact that it's $30,000, we actually just looked at one here, a similar system for $20,000, shows you kind of the curve of this thing. Some of the people that invested a few years back are actually kind of wishing that they had waited because things have gotten so much cheaper now. It's kind of a wild time.
Yeah, I should add 25-year guarantee on my panels, Stephen. Just throwing it out there. I could get, if anyone's interested, I'll get you the name of the company. But I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. I'm kind of contemplating it. But just something to think about. Bonnie, great job, though, on bringing this up. You watched it here on Techstrong Gang, but if you want to watch it or share it with your friends, it is available, of course, on Techstrong TV.
Right.
Guys, if we don't have anything else, Kimberly, I'm sure you have a full day of reInvent. What's on your schedule?
We don't kick off until about noon. So from there we go into the evening, but we have the keynote at the opening keynote is this evening. So,
yes, I saw that.
As is typical of reInvent, everything happens in the evenings here.
It's Las Vegas, I guess.
It's Vegas, but it's also reInvent because it's the hoodies and all that kind of stuff. So here I have my suit. Of course, I show up with that, but there we go.
Well, I did
Andy
bring
Jassy
the
used
sports
to have
jacket,
Andy Jassy used to have that 80s band play at night, right? They play all the Queen covers before he made his keynotes. That was like classic opening. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got they'll kick it off with a lunch. We'll have briefing on all
Yes, I
the
saw there was an
announcements that
analyst
happen.
briefing.
Yeah, we'll have a whole bunch of briefings, and then tomorrow there is deep dives that they have. They set aside a room just for us, and to go into deep dives and having access to the executives to Q&A about the different topics that we're interested. And then I'll have some one-on-ones with the area that I cover very much so is the data infrastructure and the technologies in the data infrastructure. And so over 2.5 days, I think there's probably about maybe 4 hours that are free.
Really? All right.
So we'll open my brain and just pour it in.
Sounds good. Sounds good. We'll be up here in our perch on the 29th floor, overlooking. And we'll be doing videos from here. Though Mike Vizard and Mitchell and the rest of the Techstrong gang will be out and about doing their thing. We'll be doing Gang Live all week from here as well, so
Right.
stay tuned for that. Actually, I don't know if it'll be live, but we'll be doing Gang and on a slight delay because it's early in the morning here. Stephen, you're not coming to Vegas. You're staying back.
I am. I'm protesting Amazon's pending acquisition of Intel and their conversion
Hey,
of
you know
everything
what?
to
That may not be a bad
Natural
idea.
gas power.
That would merit an investigation.
Yeah. Now
I don't
I'm hey, it could happen. No, but the Tech Field Day team is there. We're going to be doing some behind the scenes stuff. We'll be hopefully appearing on camera along with our friends from Techstrong and Futurum, and I will be following closely.
Fantastic. All righty. John, and keep us posted on the Valley. Bonnie, we'll see you, I guess, next week on Gang for your
Yes.
weekly.
That sounds good.
Okay. All righty. Stephen, maybe we can, as long as you're home, we'll get you on for some of our shows this week, giving us sort of the not in Las Vegas view of things. But until then, that's it. That's a wrap for this version of Techstrong Gang. We're going to try to keep everyone out there appraised of what's going on. If you're not here at reInvent, we'll do our best. This is Alan Schimmel. We're out.